Hi everyone, and welcome to our second and final day of our Essential Tank Sew Along that is hosted by Fandea Fabrics and Hardware with the pattern provided by Patterns for Pirates. Today, the only tools that you're going to need are your sewing machine or your serger and cover stitch, if that's your choice of sewing method, your fabric pieces that you cut out yesterday, as well as an ironing board, an iron, and some clips, as well as a measuring tool. Once you have those together, let's go ahead and meet back here and get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started with assembly. First, you're going to want to make sure you get all of your pieces together. That's your front and back piece, as well as all of your band pieces. We're going to start off with our front and back pieces of our tank top. We're just going to unfold them and lay them out nice and flat on your work surface. Then you're going to start with one of the pieces laying face up, and then you're going to take the next piece and you're going to go ahead and lay that down on top of this piece of fabric, right sides together. Then you're going to want to go ahead and clip all around using as much or as little clips as you'd like to use. I use however many I'm feeling comfortable with for the day. Like I said, it's completely up to you. Just make sure you get all of those edges clipped and ready to go. Let's go ahead and do the bands as well. Just fold them in half and go ahead and clip the ends so that they're ready to sew together with the rest of the shirt. One last piece. Go ahead and clip those ends together. Always right sides together when you are clipping together your bands and doing the seams of your garments. Once you have that all finished, we will go ahead and head on over to our sewing machine now that all of our pieces are clipped and ready to go. So once you get on over to your sewing machine, this pattern requires a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Here you'll see I am using my serger, which is my preferred method of sewing. It's nice and quick. It also has a blade to shorten my seam allowance down for me to make it a little more manageable when wearing. So if you are sewing with a regular sewing machine, like I mentioned yesterday, I highly recommend using a walking foot. And when you sew, you do not want to tug on your fabric. You want to just let the machine do the work, let it feed the fabric through itself. On your regular sewing machine, you're going to want to make sure that you are using a stretch stitch because this garment is a knit garment, and in order for it to fit properly, you want to make sure you use a stitch that has stretch. That could be a zigzag stitch, it could be a triple stitch, or it could even be the stitch on your machine that looks like a lightning bolt. So when you are sewing this up, go ahead and make sure you are using one of those stretch stitches. Here, you're going to want to sew up the sides of your garments as well as the shoulder seams. And then you're going to want to go ahead and do the edges of your bands as well. And really, that's all we're doing at this point. So go ahead and do that step. And then afterwards, we are going to head back over to our work table. Once over here, we're going to go ahead and shake our shirt out. And then we're going to go ahead and turn it right side out. You'll start to notice that, hey, it looks like a tank top. What do you know? How exciting is that? Now that we have the basic seams done for our tank top, we're going to go ahead and clip the bands on to the sleeves. So here you will see that I am just marking halfway points of my bands. This one is the neck band, and for this one I do it in 4s. So just mark that off in equal quarters for the neck band and go ahead and set that to the side. For the armbands, I do the same thing. You simply fold it in half and add a clip. For this, I just mark it in 2 equal portions for both armbands. Once you have those folded in half and clipped, you're going to go ahead and get them clipped onto your tank top to get ready to sew. So what I like to do here is I like to start with the armbands. I like to line up the seam on the side of my tank top with the seam of the armband, and that's where I like to put my first clip. So you're going to go ahead and clip that on, and then you are going to clip your second clip at the top shoulder seam. That should give you the correct amount of stretch in the areas that you need it, because when you sew this portion of your tank top, you are going to be stretching the fabric a teeny bit, because the bands will be slightly smaller than the armholes and the neck holes. Once you have that one on, go ahead and do your second arm. Just do it the same way that you did your first. Give it a little stretch. Make sure it looks like it's going to be nice and even all around. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the neckband. The neckband is a little bit different than the arm bands because the neckband is in 4s instead of just 2s. So what I like to do is I like to take that back seam of the neckband and line that up with the center back of the shirt. Then I take the center front of the neckband and line that up with the center front of the shirt. Then I just give it a little pull to stretch it out, and I add my pin or clip right there in the center so that when I stretch to fit, it is a nice even fit without any wrinkling or bunching. It should be nice and simple when we head on over to the machine and sew these on. So let's go. Now over here at your sewing machine or your serger, you're going to go ahead and start sewing these bands on with the same 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now what you're going to do here is you are not going to stretch the actual armhole of the shirt. However, you are going to gently stretch the band to fit to the shape of the armhole. Now, one more time, do not stretch the fabric of the shirt, only stretch the band to fit the armhole. With your pins, you shouldn't be stretching too much. It should be just a gentle little tug to get that band on there nice and perfect. So go ahead and sew your bands on. That'll be 2 arm bands as well as 1 neck band. All right, now that we're back over at our work table, go ahead and admire your wonderful armbands and your neckband. It's going to be time now to go ahead and head on over to our ironing board so that we can go ahead and memory press this bottom hemline right here, as well as your bands if you'd like to go ahead and top stitch those. So the hem allowance on this garment is 1/2 inch. So go ahead and use your trusty measuring tool to give that bottom hem a memory press and clip it in place. Go ahead and press down those armbands as well if you'd like to top stitch them. Now over on your machine where you're going to do your hem, you can use a cover stitch like I am using, or on your regular sewing machine, you're going to want to go ahead and use another stretch stitch so that this shirt will stretch to fit. So like I had mentioned before, it could be a triple stitch, it could be a zigzag stitch, or a lightning bolt stitch. One item that I really like to use when I would hem with my regular sewing machine is a twin needle. It gives the look of using a cover stitch machine without actually needing a cover stitch machine. It also does allow for some stretch. So go ahead and go around the bottom of your tank top with that 1/2 inch memory press and tack that down with your hem all the way around the bottom of your tank top. Here you'll just see me cutting off my strings and tying them. This is how I end my stitches with my cover stitch machine. With your regular sewing machine, you're going to want to back stitch like you would normally, but there is no back stitch on a cover stitch machine, so I just tie my ends off and snip them nice and close, and there you have it. Look at that beautiful hem. If you'd like to take it one step further, go ahead and top stitch down those bands. It really gives your tank top a nice professional look, but it is completely unnecessary. And there you have it. You have completed your very own essential tank top. And hopefully it has turned out wonderful and you're so proud of yourself, because I'm proud of you. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again.